hope one day, and I've said this to you before, I hope one day I am brave enough to share more of my story.
Step right up, folks. You're now entering It's a Circus, where parenting isn't always a show stopping act, but it's certainly entertaining. I'm your host, Elsa, here to prove that no one really knows what they're doing, and that's perfectly fine. Let's have some real conversations, peel back the layers, and remind you that you're never alone in the madness. Let's get the show rolling. I am so excited for this episode that you all are going to listen to. This is my friend Emma. We met through our husbands who grew up together. And every single time I hang out with her, I'm with her. I absolutely adore her amazing commitment to her family and how committed she is to the work that she does. She is fun-loving and wonderful and such a shiny, bright star. I have so many amazing memories with her. And one of them recently, we went and celebrated another childhood friend of Dimitri's wedding, and we got to spend some time together there too. And it was wonderful catching up. She has an absolutely incredible story. There is a happy ending, but we do talk about some kind of heavy stuff around postpartum and a health diagnosis she received postpartum. What an incredible story of grit and resilience. I know that anyone listening to this is going to be incredibly inspired. So let me read her bio. She is a mom of two. She's a practicing tech lawyer, barred in New York, California, and Australia. She's lived in the US for nearly a decade, but grew up in Australia and moved back in 2023 to have her daughter. She has lived in New York, Silicon Valley, and LA. Number one priority in her life is being a good wife, mom, sister, friend, and loving hard. When she's not at work or with her family and friends, you'll find her hanging out with her husband and daughter, planning her next overseas trip, or catch up with friends, booking a staycation for funsies, shopping in person, catching a film at an old-fashioned cinema, or just loving being with her large Lebanese family. This girl is awesome. I am so honored that she has shared her story here. And without further ado, here's Emma. Okay, Emma, thank you so much for joining me on It's a Circus, because it really is. So quickly, I want to ask you, what are your mamahood stats? So kiddos, ages, all that good stuff.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited. As I just said off air, I think you're going to be a phenomenal podcast host. So I'm so excited to be here. Okay, so I have a little one called Amira. She is nearly 2, and I have a little bub on the way who is due in, I just did my 20-week scan. Doesn't that give you like the biggest sign of relief after the 20-week scan? So
Yes.
that's a little boy.
Yes, of course.
And he is due in July. And they'll be just over 2 years apart. So shorter than yours, right? No, longer than yours. Yeah, you're the 14
Yes.
months, right?
14 months. Yeah.
Crazy mama.
That is amazing.
Amazing.
I mean, it's all crazy. Okay, amazing. Thank you. And congratulations on new little bub. I cannot wait. And I want to get into like that experience too, because I think adding a number 2 and then currently being pregnant, like, whoa, all of it
All the things, the whole circus.
It's all the things. Yes. Okay, so let's start from the beginning, because I would love to hear about your kind of journey into motherhood. So did you plan for it? Were you thinking about it? Have you always dreamt about it? Was it something that came easy naturally? Was it more of a process? Yeah. If you could walk us through that whole deal, that would be great.
Great question. So I think as women, no matter like what kind, wherever you think your life is going, at some point you contemplate having kids or no kids, right? Like you either know, like I might entertain kids, or like I definitely don't want kids. And we were in the school of, we definitely want kids, just not sure when. We were a COVID couple, my husband and I, and so we changed our wedding date like 7 times. And so by the time we actually got to our wedding in Australia, you remember, you were there. It has been 3 years in our like journey to thinking we would, be married, have traveled, starting a family. And so after we got married, decided, okay, like if it happens, it happens. But I had had a history of endometriosis, and so we just didn't know if it
Okay.
was going to happen. And we fell pregnant, like I think within 6 to 8 weeks of trying, which is wild. And we were both
It's wild.
shocked. I can't say that we were ecstatic at the
Mm-hmm.
time. We were
Mm-hmm.
newlyweds. We were still living in LA. We had no family around. We were in the, height of our jobs and our careers. And we just, took it on as you do. And Amira was born in Australia, so we had to make a call pretty early on whether we were going to, like what we were going to
Wow.
do. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so we delivered her in Australia. She's amazing. She's the best thing that's ever happened. Um, and then,
Good.
yeah, with baby number two, as we've spoken about, was sick. Actually, I found out I was sick about 4 months after Amira was born, and that required me to go undergo pretty aggressive treatment. And because of that, I was there was like a really high risk of infertility. And so I think at that point, that was the first time as a female that something that you think comes naturally or something that you expect to come easily
Yeah.
and won't be taken away from you is suddenly taken away from you. And there's this, you're faced with this
Mm-hmm.
option or this reality that you might not be able to have children. And that was a really
Yeah.
harsh reality in the thick of the, you know, fourth trimester.
Postpartum.
Totally.
Holy cow. Yeah.
And so, yeah, we did a round of IVF. We, ahead of me starting treatment, and we froze embryos, thinking that we would need them down the line. We explored surrogacy because I didn't want to carry. I finished my treatment.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in remission for over a year, which I'm very thankful for. And
Wow.
found out just before my
Yeah.
1 year that I was naturally pregnant with this baby. And I think, yeah, again,
Wow.
you don't realize until you're in that position, like how fragile your pregnancy journeys are as a mother.
Oh my God.
So yeah, we're very excited.
I know. And what like a true miracle it is.
Totally. There's no words. There's no way like other way to like look at
Yeah.
it. It we were both equally as shocked and terrified, obviously as well, given we'd just been through a whole year of the unknown. Um, but it feels so right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that we don't talk about as mothers. Again, we expect this like perfect postpartum period or just the
Yes.
usual postpartum
Oh
period,
yeah.
right? You know, you might
Yes.
suffer some baby blues, you might have some PP, like
Mm-hmm.
PTSD or postpartum anxiety or depression. But on the other
Mm-hmm.
side of that, you might also suffer something that no one it is so unexpected and so unheard of at times until you start talking about it and you realize there are many people who have walked similar paths. So yeah, we're very excited for our
And
two little
and that's
miracles.
why I'm so oh my gosh. I mean seriously, both miracles and literally thank you for sharing your story. I know that it will mean a lot to people. And I would love to hear a little bit about, because I know a lot of people have been struggling with or dealing with or finding out. I mean, it's really in the zeitgeist of on our way to motherhood or even like postpartum is the
Yeah,
endometriosis. And how did you even find out about that?
yeah. I medical misogyny I feel is just so under discussed and
Yeah.
just we talk about it as this idea of like misogyny
Yeah.
in the medical profession, but and I
Mm-hmm.
think when you actually
Mm-hmm.
hear people's experiences and then see yourself in that reality, you
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be hard pressed to find a female who hasn't had some level of experience with medical misogyny. Um,
Totally.
right? So for years, I had, painful periods, or I was super late in getting my period, and
Mm-hmm.
like extreme bloating and pain. And I just, every doctor was like, oh, it's just normal and it's hormone fluctuation and it's
Mm-hmm.
your
Mm-hmm.
belly, as it develops and, you'll grow out of it. You'll grow out of it. And I just never grew out
Mm-hmm.
of it. And so it took going
Yeah.
to doctors who listen to me, basically. And both, I
Yeah.
got two recommendations. And ironically, the first one who recommended having a laparoscopy, so like going in and like checking, was a female doctor who was like, yeah, this is probably not
Of
right,
course.
of course. Um,
Yeah.
and that was in LA. And I was at that time
Mm-hmm.
maybe like 27, 28. So it'd just been years, 10 plus
Wow.
years of this, crap.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then I, saw another female doctor in Sydney, where I'm from originally, same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first time that someone had even, entertained the idea of like, okay, this woman has had pain for 10 years, let's go in. And that's unfortunately not an uncommon, I think most women have had some, mine what thankfully wasn't severe, but women who have had severe endometriosis have that experience where they are, you know, dismissed for years and years and years until it's spread and
Yeah.
it
Can't find
compromises
an answer.
totally. Um,
Ugh.
and that was
And
exactly what
it's
happened.
like one of those things I'm sure that you felt similar is people tell you to normalize that pain. So,
100%.
like, oh, it'll get over it, or, who cares if you're in pain every single month? Like,
Even ibuprofen,
deal with it, like,
you'll be
all of that.
fine.
Ah,
Take two. You can take two every 4 hours, and in between, take some Tylenol. You'll be fine. And if it gets worse, you can take
oh
more.
my God.
Um, and it's only once a
Oh
month,
my
right? It's only once a month. Suck it up. So yeah,
God.
my
Wow.
experience was, and again, I don't think that's a unique experience. I think most women
No.
who've had that, um, who've had endometriosis or any sort of gynecological like concerns would have similar
Hmm.
experiences. So yeah, sad reality. But I think we're getting there. I think women are starting with things like this, hearing other women have similar experiences and real
Yes.
people, right? Like not celebrities, not someone
Hmm.
peddling a medicine. It's just real
Yeah.
humans having a conversation about their personal
Hmm.
experiences and sharing more information. People are starting to slowly come to the realization of, oh crap, like I'm not alone. There are people who've
Yeah.
walked similar paths. Yeah,
Yeah. And what a great story and something to hear that you can go through that and then still wind up with a healthy
have kids,
pregnancy.
totally. And quickly, like that was the shock.
Amazing.
Um,
Amazing. Yeah.
yeah, if I hadn't had the surgery, I wonder if it would have taken a longer time to get diagnosed and then
Hmm.
figure out that, oh, actually, it was endometriosis, and this is why you're having trouble conceiving, which is true for many
Right.
of my friends. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I mean, what a thing to go through. And then, so, yes. So you find out you're pregnant and you're a newlywed and still, I think that's another thing people tell you too is it's like, it's going to take 6 months. It's going to take a year. Like, let everything, whatever out of your system. Like, you may not hit the mark the first time. And then that happens. so
totally.
and you decide that you have to like change your whole life. So like tell us about that. Like what were the conversations? What was like the have to have happen? How was the prep for this?
It's such a good question because I am, when you TikTok doom scroll or you Instagram doom scroll, you look at
Yeah.
all these like amazing
Yeah.
announcements and everyone looks so happy, right? When they have these baby
Mm-hmm.
announcements and like so excited.
Mm-hmm.
But no one talks about the period beforehand, like that terrifying period beforehand where you find out and you're like, oh shit, like my life is actually about to change forever. Like I am going to be socially,
Mm-hmm.
legally responsible for a human
Yes.
in 9 months.
Yes.
Like, and until they're born, I have to like protect it and feed it and, not drink and not smoke and
Mm-hmm.
not do all of these things to like get it here
Mm-hmm.
safely. Then I have to care for it, for its life. And I think I was not prepared for that, because all I had seen
Mm-hmm.
was this like exciting, you're going to love it and it's going to be wonderful and it's going to be great, and the nesting and the nurseries, but I was terrified I was terrified of
Mhm.
the responsibility of, because, my husband and I had, been together for 7 years, and we had traveled and we loved our life. And suddenly we were going to add this child to it. And, when you're trying to have a baby, it's all fun and games, actually, until the reality hits.
Yeah,
Um, and so it took me a long
totally.
time, right? It takes a while. Um,
Yeah.
did you feel like that? I definitely felt like that. And it took me a
Oh
few
my God.
months,
I still feel like that's not bad.
right?
Literally, because it is wild. And it is true. You are sitting there and you're expecting, where I was also seeing so many announcements, and I had a friend group where I was like way on the last of the last people. Like
I
their
have
kids are
kids.
like in high school,
Yeah,
like doing all the things. Yes. So I was feeling the exact same way. It was literally like, okay, I'm waiting for all the celebrations to happen or all the things to happen
the
or how
exciting
to feel.
feelings.
And
Yeah.
yeah, it was,
Did you feel
yeah,
like
it
that for
was
both?
hard. It was hard. Um, with with my first, I we waited the 3 months before we told family. So we privately celebrated. And as soon as we started telling family, I wish I would have told them sooner
Yeah,
because
okay.
it was so much more fun to see other people's excitement. It made you also very excited.
Yeah.
When the second one came along, I knew for sure I wanted to just
Yeah,
share
right.
immediately. And I would describe both experiences of kind of numb because it was so much. I couldn't really like feel the depth. I think now when I look back and in retrospect, yeah, I was feeling something, but at this point, like I don't think I knew really what I was feeling. There was
Yeah.
when I look at it now, I don't see the depth of what it actually takes to feel that now.
And you're in such a
So there
cloud
was
at
like a
that
little
time.
numb out. Totally. Yes, you're in a cloud.
Yeah.
And I think you hear a lot of things, or my experience was I heard a lot of advice. I am, of course, that person is like, I got to research all the things, the best books, all the stuff. And
Of
I
course you
did
are
all that, but like nothing soaked in. Because I know, of course, but nothing soaked in because I wasn't actually doing it.
doing it.
I don't know. It was so weird. Did you do like the reading of the books, the expert stuff?
I tried to. Um, and honestly, I felt like
Mm-hmm.
such a bad mum, or like such a pre-bad mum, and I often feel
Oh
like this as
gosh.
well, because people around me were reading all these books and doing all this research and had all these
Yes.
spreadsheets and
Yep.
were looking at things that
Yep.
I hadn't thought about, like, oh, well, you can't buy those bottles because they're not
Mm-hmm.
BPA free, or you can't buy this particular rash cream
Mm-hmm.
because it has some random chemical. Um,
Yep.
and I just wasn't that invested is the wrong word, but I just wasn't that like capable at the time. I was working a full-time job. My husband and I are
Mm-hmm.
both attorneys, and we
Yes.
were working like crazy
Mm-hmm.
hours. I had just found out I was pregnant. And I didn't have time to like over engineer. I was just trying to stay afloat with
Yes.
the knowledge that my life was going to change in less than a year, um,
Yep.
irreversibly. Um, and so it wasn't until I would say maybe the last trimester that I really started to like, oh, okay, well, like I'll do some research on the things that I care about the most. And for me, it was
Mm-hmm.
things like, formula. And was I going to breastfeed? Was I not? Was I
Mm-hmm.
going to
Yeah.
have the baby in the US or in Australia? And those were the types of conversations that, yeah, only came, 6, 7 months after finding out that I was pregnant.
Closer to the yeah.
Yeah. And until then, I was just like trying not
So
to
you
drown.
had to move across country.
Yes.
Yeah.
Across the
Of course.
universe,
You have a
across
job.
world,
Yeah. Across the world, yes.
literally.
What got you to that point? And
Yeah.
any type of move is wild, but like to another world is also very intense. How did
Really.
that come about? Was that stressful at all or a no-brainer?
We didn't actually think we were going to go for how long we did. Like we never, I don't think we either of us thought it was going to be like this
Yeah.
permanent move. But
Hmm.
after we had Amira and again found out that I was unwell, um, it became a no-brainer,
Mm-hmm.
because I
Mm-hmm.
feel like an honorary US citizen after nearly 10 years in the US, and I love so
Yeah.
much about the US. But one thing that I don't love so much about the US, which I think is shared universally generally, is
Yep.
the health system.
Yes.
Um, and I think having the
Mm-hmm.
optionality when you are facing both postpartum care and um, like a life-threatening illness, you choose
Yeah.
ease, access,
Mm-hmm.
and support.
Mm-hmm.
And for us, having
Mm-hmm.
my family around, I have a bunch of siblings and my parents, and that made it so much easier to be able to navigate postpartum plus this unexpected life change, at the same time. And then my husband was, he also fell in love with Australia. He'd been here a bunch of times,
Yeah.
and he could practice here and I could practice here. And so it became an easy decision for us. And I think looking back on it, it was always going to be the right decision. I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of people have to make that choice. It might not be as extreme as moving to Australia or moving to countries,
Mm-hmm.
but I've had a bunch of friends move back to their hometowns after in the US after they
Yeah.
have babies, right? To be either closer to siblings or to aging parents or to like a support
Mm-hmm.
network that they feel comfortable with, or out of
Mm-hmm.
cities like New
Yes.
York, right? Where you love New York, but like, can you
Yep.
actually have three kids in New York? I don't know.
Right.
Probably not.
Right. Right.
You guys moved as well, right?
Totally. I was just going to say, I've done it twice now. So we moved when I was still pregnant with Felix. And then our second one, 14 months later, still gave birth in Austin. But 4 months postpartum with my second, we decided that we were going to
Why
move
did you decide
to
at
make
that
another
point?
move
You
to
were
Florida.
in Texas at that point? Yeah.
We were, yes, and we had moved to a great community and we loved our home. We were very excited. Same idea. Didn't want to raise kids necessarily in LA. And also during COVID, we're like, well, if we can work and move anywhere, let's
Why
do
not?
it. Like let's try it on. And we loved it, but as you know, as you bring this baby to life and you're navigating postpartum, and then for us, we quickly found out that we were having another one in addition to also balancing careers, we did feel like we needed additional family support.
Yeah.
And for us, that looked like a move to warm and sunny Florida, which ended up being a great move for us.
It suits you.
But for those same reasons, community and support. Thank you. I love a endless sunshine, the Sunshine
Yeah.
State. So here for it.
So here for it.
Yeah. So you're so okay. You make this move, insane. Wow. And then you're here, you have little baby. What was that postpartum? Was it the birth that you wanted? What were those kind of experiences like for you, especially in Sydney and as somebody that's still just soaking in the fact that you are truly going to have to be in charge of this little baby human?
Needs to like live and breathe. I think Nico and I, when they gave us our daughter at the hospital to like leave the hospital, um, we were,
Yeah.
I honestly remember we got into the car park, we put
Mm-hmm.
her in the car, Nico was like holding
Mm-hmm.
this capsule like it's the like most sensitive of glass china, puts her in the car, and he just looks at
Mm-hmm.
me when he gets in the car, and he's like this is it. Uh, We like this is it. Like there's nothing else. There's no help. There's no nurses. There's no midwives. There's no doctors. Like we're just taking her home now.
Yeah.
Um, and
Mm-hmm.
that was the moment. I think for both of us, we still talk about that moment of like you just get given this child without a manual, and you just have to
Mm-hmm.
just do it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and
Yeah.
that was hard. I think that was like a reality before that. Um, I had elected, and this is like a slightly controversial like take, but for me, I had elected to
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
elective C-section. Um, And
Mm-hmm.
I
Okay.
got a lot of heat for it that at the time. And I'm doing an elective C-section
Mm-hmm.
with my second. And that choice
Mm-hmm.
is purely purely personal on the basis
Mm-hmm.
that I don't know many people who've had like a terrible C-section experience, but I know plenty who had a
Yes.
terrible natural birth experience or vaginal birth experience. And so for
Yeah.
me, weighing it up, that was one thing that I did a lot of research on actually, is like what type of birth I wanted.
Yeah.
And I knew that if I was sitting there like waiting for my water to break and like running to the hospital, I would have a
Mm-hmm.
panic attack.
Mm-hmm.
So my
Yeah.
OB and I made that plan, and that was great. So,
Mm-hmm.
the morning of my C-section, I woke up. My sister had blow dried my hair before. I know that sounds
Yeah.
terrible, but it made me feel
Ah,
like I was ready
oh
to
no, I love that.
birth.
I
I
love
felt
that.
good. I felt great.
Yes.
I felt
Yes.
calm. I went in. The hospital was amazing. I had a great experience. I had
Mm-hmm.
an amazing nurse, filming
Yeah.
my C-section and taking photos of Nico, and I have these amazing photos I
Mm-hmm.
can share with you of like our
Mm-hmm.
birth. And I had a great, post C-section experience. Like my scar healed really well. I felt great, even though now looking
Yeah.
back, I was sick.
Of course.
But the actual like
Yeah.
pregnancy was great. Um, and it took a lot of the
Yeah.
stress around birth out of the equation for me, which I know is,
Yeah.
yeah, common.
I think I want to just drive home this point, and this is one point that I love to make everywhere because I think a lot of times when you're making these, and I'm going to quote unquote controversial because it's not, it's your decision. So it doesn't really actually have to be controversial, but it's so important to like anchor into what is best for you as opposed to best for other people. So
Totally,
again, just, you know, love that and owning that decision and moving forward. So
totally.
I think that's beautiful. And I think there is, should be talked about more because I do think there are quite a few people that do the elective
See.
C-section.
And they don't want to talk about it.
It's not like totally rare.
A hundred
I
percent.
know. This is what I mean. Yeah.
Or they feel ashamed to talk about it. Women who I know
Mm-hmm.
who have had elective C-sections that feel
Yes.
ashamed to talk about it because they think that it like makes them less of a
Yeah.
mom, or like it makes them less
Right.
like it suits them more than their baby. And that's like obviously a hard conversation, right? Like you want to
Yeah.
understand from your provider, okay, am I putting my baby at any
Mm-hmm.
more risk having a C-section versus a vaginal birth?
Right.
But I think ultimately, if
Mm-hmm.
you as the mother are going to be that anxious
Mm-hmm.
in the lead up, that can't be good for the
Yes.
baby either. So it's like making that decision
Exactly.
universally for yourself.
Yeah.
And it was the best
Yeah.
decision we made. And I have many people who ask me all the time now, like, would I recommend it for their personal like
Mm-hmm.
circumstances and what my experience was. And I had a great experience.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah,
I love that.
and then she was awesome. She was great. She was a good baby. We didn't have much, and I hate that when people are like, "Oh, my baby slept through the night, and my baby like ate really well. My baby did this." Like she was a terror to eat. Like she just would not latch. I had a terrible time breastfeeding, but she was a good sleeper.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, she's
Great.
terrible.
So did you end up breastfeeding or did you switch to formula?
So I had gestational diabetes for my pregnancy,
Mm-hmm.
which was
Okay.
annoying. And so I managed that with insulin actually. And so she was
Wow.
born,
Okay.
yeah,
Great.
she was born with low blood sugar. And so because of that, my
Mm-hmm.
supply wasn't in yet. And so she started actually on formula. And then from the beginning, we
Yep.
mix fed her from the very beginning. And then I fed her for about 4 months, but then I had to start treatment, and so I wasn't able to feed her anymore, able to breastfeed her. So I had to stop. But thankfully, I like she took the bottle and she breastfed. She bottle fed and liked formula, and that's something that I feel very passionately about now on mixed feeding. I get I get a lot of questions about, or I see a lot of conversation around like how good like exclusive breastfeeding is, and of course, like everyone knows breastfeeding is amazing or breast milk is
Mm-hmm.
amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but you might not have that choice, right? Like you might not have a supply,
No.
or you
Mm-mm.
might need to do treatment, or your
Mm-hmm.
baby might have allergies,
Yes.
or whatever it is. And there's less
Yes.
conversation,
Yes.
right? Around, okay, but
There
mixed
is.
feeding is
Mm-hmm.
okay too, and formula feeding is okay too.
Oh my
Um,
God. I know.
yeah,
I know. I didn't even know what mixed feeding was. Literally, I did not
I
know
didn't even know it's an
until
option.
somebody like told me. Yeah, and I was like, "What? This is the best idea ever." Like, let's make it a little bit less stressful if that comes with stress for you
100%.
and be able to like still filter that in. I know.
So my
It's
husband,
amazing
I
what
would
we
feed like during the
cannot think.
day, and then at night, Nico would feed
Mhm.
her a bottle, a formula
Mhm.
bottle, and I would pump. So
Mhm.
in the thick of the night, it was, this is some of our
Nice.
favorite times.
Yes.
Looking back, he was feeding our daughter, I was pumping, and like to keep my supply up, and it was great. Like obviously like terrible,
Yeah.
like not sleeping, but it was great to like look back and see we
Right.
were doing it together. Like both of us had a role in her,
Together.
yeah,
Yeah.
development or feeding. And that was really
Mhm.
cool. So I big supporter of thinking about mixed feeding if it's something that you're thinking about.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for me, I was full time with my first for 8 weeks,
My
and
gosh,
then
you're a
mixed
warrior.
fed and weaned onto formula. And then for Sebastian, my second one, it was like 3 weeks because I was like, I have done this. I know what it's like. I know what kind of
Totally.
anxiety, stress, whatever happens to me, and I already have a beautiful option. And truly, I am not going to have a third. But if I were to have a third, it would just be straight.
Oh
And
yeah,
again, it's one of those moments where you make that best decision for you. It will be the best for your baby.
100%.
So,
In Australia, we have this
you do.
like concept which I wish was like more
Mm-hmm.
like popular in the US, where so after your
Yeah.
child is born, you are put in this group where in your I get the zip code, so it's postcode in Australia, but it's a zip code in the US, where women who have had kids within 2 to 3 weeks generally of you delivering, you're all put in a like community group together, and the state like our state follows up with you.
What?
And for the first 6 weeks, six
Oh,
weeks, yeah, after
that is
birth,
incredible.
yeah, you all meet together in your zip code at a community center, and you like check in with a nurse. Like the nurse is there answering
Wow.
questions. You're hearing from mums who have
Oh
kids,
my God.
some born on the same day as you.
Yeah.
And that was some of my very very good friends are from that group with me. But looking back
Mm-hmm.
at our
I bet.
experiences, the anxiety that some of those, like some of the mothers felt with like trying to
Mm-hmm.
exclusively breastfeed, I feel like took away from their experience of being a
Yes.
first time mum because they
Yes.
were so focused
Yes.
on feeding,
Yes.
and less on,
Yes.
yeah, everything else. So totally, like whatever works for you is
Yes.
going to be best for you and Bubs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the best advice ever, because that did not come to my head, was one of my friends was like, just have backup formula at home. Like, you don't know what'll happen or when you'll need it. Just have it at home. You've done the
Best
research.
advice.
You don't have to think twice about it. I I did as just like, oh, another thing to check off my like get ready list.
Yeah.
But legit, I'm like, that is the best advice I have
Best advice.
gotten.
Love it.
So one of those things where it's like I tell everybody, like it doesn't matter what your plan is, just have it in your house because
You
you
have no
just don't know,
idea. You don't even know if you're going
and
to
then
get a
you're not
supply.
freaking out.
A hundred
Yeah,
percent. 100%. Couldn't agree more.
totally,
Could not agree more.
totally. Okay, so for your postpartum,
Hmm.
did you have support? Did you have like a night nurse? Did you have, family around? Did you have people stay with you? What was like your support, especially in that kind of like fourth trimester?
Great. We really debated getting a night nurse, and we really
Mm-hmm.
wanted one. Um, Honestly, the
Mm-hmm.
like factors for us came down to two things. Like, was the price of it worth
Mm-hmm.
the reward, like what we would
Yep.
actually get? And two,
Mm-hmm.
could we trust someone with our new baby,
Yeah,
like at
I
night?
know. It's so
It's
hard.
so
I know.
hard. And
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
ultimately the factor was like, could we just go to sleep and like have someone take care of
Yeah.
our baby. Um, at that time, definitely not.
Could you actually sleep?
Yeah, we like I would not sleep. My
Yeah,
anxiety would have
exactly.
like no. Now I definitely could. Like
Of
with baby
course.
two,
Yeah.
for sure, which is terrible. But
Yeah.
baby one, no way. So that was like ultimately what we like where we landed. And then I had my mom and
Mhm.
my sisters, like they were amazing support. But Nico and I really did like the big lift of it. And I think that is for us, that was the only way to survive because we were both doing it. And I tell and push and encourage people
Mhm.
so much on this point where it doesn't need to be a partner. It doesn't need to be your like the father. It doesn't need to be, you know, it doesn't need to be anyone in particular, but having someone, anyone who you trust to leave your baby with, even for an hour, just to like shower, is critical to set up
Yeah.
before the baby's born. Because otherwise, all you're doing is just swarmed in this newborn cycle, I think. And so for me,
Yes.
it was being able to trust my husband, obviously, my mom, my sisters, and I had
Yeah.
people able to
Mhm.
help me through just doing basic human things like getting my nails done. I know that sounds silly, but that made me feel human, or having my hair
Yeah, yeah.
washed,
I get
or
it. Mhm.
going to the grocery
Yep.
store, or buying new clothes, or just sitting on my
Mhm.
bed without a baby, um, and trusting that there was
Mhm.
someone to take care of her. If I hadn't had that plan set up, I don't think I would have had the mental space to grow because there was definitely a period, probably like 2 to 3 weeks after she was born,
Yeah.
where as the sun went down, I still get goosebumps thinking the sun went down and I could feel my anxiety like raising and
Yes.
because I was like, I don't know
Yeah.
what the night is going to hold. You know, is she going to have a fever? Is
Yeah.
she going to eat? Am I going to sleep?
Yes.
Will she wake
Yeah.
up? Right? And that was
Mm.
hard. And if I didn't have like a time, like a couple of hours every day to release that anxiety, I think it would have turned
Mhm.
a lot more. I think that anxiety would have developed a lot more. Um, that is my biggest advice postpartum is to have some sort of support network in place, at least an hour or two a day to to allow you to do the things that make you feel human, but someone that you trust,
Yeah.
because otherwise you're just worried about them anyway.
Absolutely.
Did you have that?
Yeah. It is so true. Yeah, I think for me, I we also considered a night. We had like a doula that we were working with, and she offered like some nighttime possibility. And we had determined at first no, for literally those same reasons. And we also had family staying with us, like in our home. So I knew that if we like really needed somebody that would be there. And it's so interesting that you brought up the 3 week thing because that is also what I have told people too. After the adrenaline kind of are seeing like, okay, this is my life now. There is, I don't know, I need to find some research because there is this 3 week lull that you're just, wait a second. The exhaustion comes up to you. The realness of what you're about to enter really starts to happen and that was a tough time for me, both babies postpartum. It was just like you've got to
You
be
were
kidding
kidding
me.
me.
This is it? This is what we signed up for? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. How long is this going to last? I remember telling my husband, and this is like, it sounds
Uh-huh.
super morbid, but it's how
Mhm.
I compared it. And looking back, I still think it is a reality.
Mhm.
It felt like it feels like after someone you love passes away. So when you have the
Yeah.
funeral and like in the immediate aftermath of someone passing, you have a lot of support. So like you have the
Mhm.
baby and people are excited and taking photos and
Yes.
visiting the baby.
Yes.
And it's like you have a lot
Yes.
of support. But then
Mhm.
after the funeral or after
Mhm.
you give birth or after you leave the hospital, everyone goes
Mhm.
back to their lives. Everyone goes back to their,
Yes.
own spaces, and
Yes.
you are left with the reality. And at a funeral, post death,
Yes.
it's like, the reality of living without this person. And with a
Yeah.
baby, it's the reality of living with this person.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
you grieve your old life because you're stuck in this new life
Yes.
and everyone's gone back to their
Mhm.
lives and you've got to find a new normal
Yes.
um, in this new
Mm-hmm.
reality. And I think that that happens about,
Mm-hmm.
that first 3 weeks after the big event.
Yeah.
And it's really hard. It's really hard to navigate.
Yes.
Um,
It
but
is so hard to navigate.
and good friends, I think. Good friends and good family
But
is the
yes, good friends support as much as you can. And then also, I will tell you, is I believe that it is such a lonely job to be a mom. And I
100%.
mean, please, I think people can agree that. But there is this moment where you're like, I am really walking this alone. Even if I had the most support in the world, it's like you got to like dig deep and, move on through your day or move on through whatever moment that is presenting challenges. But
Really.
it really is a very lonely walk.
100%. And it changes because your friendships change,
Yes.
your careers
Yes.
change, your priorities change, everything changes. It's overnight
Mm-hmm.
almost.
Yeah.
And you have to navigate
Yes.
yourself. No one loves your kid more than you. No one wants the best for your kid more than you.
Right.
Um, and at the end of the day, you're the one responsible for them. Um, and when everyone goes home at night and goes back to their lives, it's you and your baby. Um,
Yes.
and I think
Yes.
in the thick of it, like those 1, 2 a.m.s where you're like, and screaming baby or a colicky baby, and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, I am actually doing
Mm-hmm.
this alone. Um, it's really hard. Or you see your friends
Yes.
traveling or living their lives. They've either got,
Right.
older kids or no kids,
Yes.
um, is also really hard. And that's where social media, I think,
Yes.
becomes a little more dangerous, in that fourth trimester where you're grieving an old life,
I
trying to figure out your
agree.
new. Yeah, that was hard for me.
Right. And I mean, thank goodness. And like, thank goodness there is like this fourth trimester thing that we can talk about. But that whole era, I mean, it is such a blur. I say this all the time. I'm like, I'm so glad I took so many pictures because literally I
Oh
can
my
like
gosh,
barely remember what it truly was like.
100%.
So I'm like, oh, I'm glad I took a photo of that. Oh yeah, I remember. I barely remember those things.
Oh, like where
So
was this
you're
taken?
in the fourth try.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Like I are you sure I was there? Was that
yeah,
me? But you're in your fourth try.
yep.
And how did this health diagnosis happen? And why did it have
What?
to come at your like postpartum
Yeah,
moment? Yeah.
great question. It had been years, like 2 years of me, worried about a swollen lymph node. And
Okay.
I had been told, like, multiple times that it was nothing to worry about, that it was COVID, that it was like my hormones,
Oh
that
God.
that it would go away, that it was
Yeah.
reactive. And it took me like really pushing, like really, really pushing to get a biopsy for it to be diagnosed.
Okay.
And I can only say that I wish it on no one, like in the thick of your fourth trimester. Um, but I don't regret going through it because I think it changed me completely as a person,
Oh
and as a
yeah.
mother. Um, I think that I would have been a lot more selfish, or a lot more, hyper focused on, like, and sweating the small stuff. But when you are faced with,
Mm-hmm.
quite literally life and death, literally,
Yeah.
nothing matters. Nothing except your health, your
Oh my
family,
God.
your closest friends. Nothing matters. And you start to prioritize. And I think that was the key for me in that fourth trimester, that I try
Mm-hmm.
to stress to people now, like, hopefully not going through what I went through, but that prioritizing people who prioritize you is number one, because
Mm-hmm.
there can be no
Yeah.
time for people who don't prioritize you, and focusing on the things that give you peace and protecting your peace. Um,
Mm-hmm.
because as a new mother, especially, um, your peace is taken because you're, you know, focusing on a little
Yes.
life. So protecting your peace was really the two things that I focused on through this diagnosis. Um, and I thankfully had an excellent prognosis, which I know is not the um, reality of a lot of mums. And so I think that's why I'm like cautious in how I talk about my diagnosis and what I had, because I know that a lot of people go through much worse. And I had no choice but to survive. I, yeah, I think the hardest part, and I don't know if this will resonate with mums who go through something nefarious, like, you know, a health problem
Hmm.
or um, anything similar, but I couldn't look at my daughter or hold my daughter for for 10 days waiting on my diagnosis because I just thought she shouldn't love me. She shouldn't be attached to me because like what if I'm not here? And that was the hardest part in the whole thing is like her, you know, like when it's just you or your family, like your immediate family, like and you don't have something that's dependent on you, I think it might be slightly easier. But when you have something this a newborn that needs you literally to sustain its life, it was devastating. It was devastating.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
So yeah, got diagnosed, started treatment
Emma. So
immediately.
how uh, so how do you, I mean, one, I'm like almost crying because
Mhm.
holy cow.
I've actually
Um
never spoken about it like
how
this, like detailed in a
uh,
chat. Yeah, yeah, it was really hard.
well, thank you for sharing.
Yeah,
Uh, and also just the depth of that because I think when you're in the depth of those tough times when you talk about being that, you know, you're walking this path alone and then you have this other thing on top of it.
yeah.
How did you move through that? Did you lean on anyone? Did you
Mm, great
what
question.
was what were some of like some tools?
Great question. I really ummed and ahed about how I would navigate, period, because
Mm-hmm. Wow.
I think people who I thought would be there more weren't as I was
Mm-hmm.
going through the like
Wow.
diagnosis process. And that really affected me because
Yeah.
I thought that if, you know, some of my closest people couldn't be there, then no one would want to be there, is how that like that really impacted me.
Okay.
And so there was like a
Yeah.
2 week period where I was like, well, I'm just not going to tell anyone because if, other than my family, because if these people who I thought, or if this network of people who I thought would be weren't, then who am I to say that anyone else would want to support me through this period? That changed really quickly when I realized that I would have to go through treatment, like pretty quickly. And I, with like from day one, my husband, my parents, my siblings, like I can't tell you, but my mother-in-law, like my extended family, everyone was just
Yeah.
phenomenal. Like I cannot fault them, and that was because they went through the whole journey with me, start to finish. They knew, you know, when I was doing my
Mm-hmm.
biopsies, they went to, you know,
Mm-hmm.
oh, treatments with me. Like they were phenomenal. I
Mm-hmm.
ultimately decided to send a text message to my like closer network of people who I would talk to on a daily basis or, you know, a weekly basis who are like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, good friends, not, and
Right.
let them know what was going on. And so like friends from college, friends from law school, friends like, you know, my base in LA, my work who were phenomenal, and just let them know like, hey, I've been diagnosed. My treatment looks like this. This is what it's going to be like. I'm so sorry if I'm, you know, not as available as I usually am. This is why. I won't be able to see you because I'm going to be immunocompromised. it was like that one message in already me thinking that I wasn't going to have the support that I needed. And again, like in this fourth trimester where I'm already dealing with,
Yeah.
a newborn,
Yes.
was the best thing that I ever did. And for anyone who's going through something similar, the best thing I ever did, because out of that grew some of my closest friendships, my deepest friendships. Um,
Hmm.
People, it allowed people to be there in a way that they wanted to be, people who wanted to be there. It allowed other people to share their
Yes.
experiences and they had gone through similar things. It allowed people to connect me with people who had gone through similar things. Um, my friends would send, not that they needed to, but it was their way of showing they cared. Basic things like, okay, well, we're going to send you vouchers for meal support. We're going to bring you food. We're going to drop food on your doorstep. We're going to,
Yep.
send you a bunch of like clothes that'll be comfortable because you've just had a C-section and now you're going through treatment.
Hmm.
Um,
Oh my
and yeah, it
gosh.
allowed
Yeah.
people to like want to be there and to show their support and their love.
Hmm.
And allowed me to like piece through who could be there and wanted to be and those who didn't. And that was a lesson, a lifelong lesson, that I'll, yeah, hold on to forever, I think.
That's amazing. So you chose to be honest and open
Hmm.
and then say, like, set your boundary. Like, I'm not going to be able to see you because of all of these things.
Yeah. And
And
people
then
respect that.
people respected it and they were able to,
Show their support in
share
other
what
ways.
they could or show support. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And you, I mean, how amazing. At least you were able to receive some of that because I know that can also be really tough. So, wow.
I think I got into remission that quickly for many reasons, but like a really big bulk of it was I felt so supported. I felt like
Wow.
I I had just like a
Wow.
team of people who were supporting me, my daughter, my husband, who was again, we were both back new to Australia. He was navigating trying to like get a job in Australia. I was trying to navigate,
Mm-hmm.
working with in my current role. Um, I worked through all of treatment as well. And so I think like
Oh
having,
my God. You
I
did?
did. People are like find that so strange. And that's not true for everyone, obviously. Like some people like absolutely can't.
No. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
for me, it was the only thing that kept me sane. Um, in and
Sure.
having like
Yeah.
a flexible employer, I think if anyone is going through this, even if it's something, I've had colleagues and friends go through things like postpartum depression, and that is honestly just
Yeah.
as to like seeing women go through it, some very, very close friends, it is
Mm-hmm.
equally as mentally, emotionally, physically draining as like a physical
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
diagnosis. Having an employer who is supportive is, you know, uh, cannot be
Wow.
understated. And so I was so thankful that
Yeah.
my
Of
employer
course.
was, yeah, able to help me navigate, working from home and,
Mm-hmm.
not having to go into the office
Mm-hmm.
because I was
Mm-hmm.
immunocompromised, taking time off for treatment. Um, yeah, I was very, very grateful. And something that I, yeah, strongly encourage people to reflect on, now in their current jobs is like, if something was to happen to you, do you think that your employer would be supportive? Because if the answer is no, then
Right.
think about what that means for your future. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Oh my gosh, Emma. So you go through this
mhm.
absolute massive moment. When is like, I don't know, you start to see the light or like a turn to better days, better times? Was it gradual? Was it like a certain moment?
I think that it was as I went through treatment and could feel myself getting better because I did have some symptoms. Well, like I should say, I had nothing obvious other than a swollen lymph node. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so, and I say that like very cautiously because I don't want to like freak people out either. But I had no like obvious, you know, my scans were clean, my blood tests were clean,
Mhm.
but I just started feeling better. My lymph node went down completely after my first treatment. And so
Wow.
I had 3 months of treatment every 2 weeks. And then I had a scan at the end of that to check how I was going. And it was like waiting for the scan, like they call it scan anxiety. That was like those times was like the times where I like couldn't breathe like 48 hours before. And then after you get the scan and it's like, yep, you're all good, that
Mm.
you feel like you could go and like get the lottery and win the lottery and your
Right.
life is the best.
You basically have. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yes. Yes.
I had a very close friend who
Wow.
had a the same diagnosis as me about 10 years ago.
Hmm.
Um, more like a more progressed stage than I did, and they were sensational.
Hmm.
Um, and so I felt having that person there to support throughout the process was also someone that I
Yeah.
could, every time I spoke to them, I felt better and better and better and better and
Hmm.
deep in, Reddit and Google and ChatGPT and
Yes.
support groups,
Of course.
and seeing
Yeah.
stories of survivors and people who had walked my path again as young mums, especially, gave me a lot of support,
Hmm.
and comfort, and that just
Hmm.
slowly,
Wow.
you know, grew. And obviously, like, that I'm a pretty like religious person, and for me,
Yeah.
finding something, I think, and I tell people this, it doesn't need to be religion, it doesn't need to be faith, it doesn't need to be spiritual. It just needs to be something that you believe in,
Hmm.
that can give you peace,
Right.
that can give you
Yes.
comfort. Um, and for me, that was,
Yes.
our faith, and talking to, people within our community about their experiences as well. For me, that was, I think I got to the end of my treatment. Um, everything went great. Thank God, everything, I
Hmm.
was in remission, and it was kind of like a what then,
Hmm.
you know, the first 6 months of my daughter's life is a blur. I was just trying to survive being a
Yeah.
mum, trying to
Of course.
survive literally my life, um, and navigate
Hmm.
being back home. Um,
Yeah.
and it's taken a long time, but I feel like I navigated that as best I could through these types of tips.
Well, I mean, holy cow. Absolutely. When you, I mean, wow, because now you're not even 2 years out from all of that.
Yeah.
So it is very new, but if you were to think about yourself in that state, is there any type of advice that you would give her or tell her now that you're here?
Well, you will get through it. You will. And like better days are coming, but it has to be, as cliche as
Yeah.
it sounds, it really does have to be one day at a time, because like looking constantly, assessing the future really robs you
Mm-hmm.
of your current state. And I feel super robbed of my daughter's first 6 months, because all I was focused on was,
Yes.
surviving, looking to 6 months, looking to my 3 month
Mm-hmm.
scan, looking to my 6 month scan, that I really
Yeah.
didn't focus on
Mm-hmm.
like the time with her. Um, and so, and it, you were saying earlier, like you feel like you're in this fog where you're like looking at photos of, like, was I there? Did this actually happen?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
that to an even like higher degree. Um, so I would
Yeah.
just say, and really finding a network that brings you peace and is
Mm-hmm.
willing to support you, I think is critical. Yeah, that my two big pieces of advice. And reaching out to people, because people want to help, right? No one's an asshole.
I love that.
People
Yeah.
want to help. People want to be
Right.
able to, and if they don't want to help, then they are an asshole and they shouldn't be in your life.
Right. Yeah. Then you
Then
know.
and that's the lesson I learned. And so, yeah, finding the people that
Yeah.
want to be there, um, because there will come a time that they need you,
Mm-hmm.
um, and that's just how life works. That was my time. I'm sure in a few
Yeah.
years it'll be a friend of mine's time, and I've walked this path, and will know exactly how to support them,
Yes.
just like my friend supported me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, incredible. Okay, well, we have new baby coming.
Yes.
So tell me, like, what are you doing different?
Yes.
What are you doing the same? What has been the experience the second time around?
Do you know, last night I was Googling, I was like, oh, I'm going to make sure I mention this on
Hmm.
the podcast. I was Googling, what do you need for a
Yeah.
second time baby? What is it that you actually need? Is there a
Mm-hmm.
list of,
Yeah.
because the
Yeah.
like the crap, like not the crap thing, but like the annoying thing is that we have a boy and we had a girl at the first time. And let's talk first about
Sure.
like gender disappointment. We were disappointed.
Yeah. Okay.
We were super disappointed. Yeah,
Really?
both of us.
Oh,
Uh,
I'm
I
surprised.
know. So
Okay.
everyone's like, "Oh, you get one of each. That's amazing." And we're both like, "Yeah."
Right. Like thinking that was like
The
your
goal.
plan. Yeah,
Yeah.
assuming that. Yeah,
hmm
yeah.
Um,
Right.
I have
Right.
sisters and I have a brother, and I love my
Uh,
brother is the best thing. And Johnny, if you're listening to this, I love you. But my sisters are they're an extension of you, right? Like as a female, like my
yeah.
brother won't change my daughter's
Wow.
diapers, but my sisters are there all the
Hmm.
time. So for me, I was like, well, no,
Yeah.
my daughter needs a sister, obviously. And my husband was like,
Hmm.
well, this is great. Like, I have an army of women to take care of me as I'm old, like as I age.
Oh my
This is
gosh.
what I want, obviously.
He is such a girl dad. I can't even
Such a
handle
girl
it.
dad.
Yes, exactly.
So we popped this balloon in front of our like immediate family, and we're both like, yay. And then we get into the car and we're like, wait, what? A boy? What? And it took us like a couple of days, like process. Obviously now we're, well, I shouldn't say obviously, like now we're
Yes.
like very excited to like have a boy. But yeah,
Right.
it was really sad. And again, controversial because everyone's like, you should be thankful. Obviously, we're thankful. But I think it's natural to feel some level of, if you expect one thing or know one thing, to have that completely ripped from you is also hard.
Yes, it is.
And seeing, you know,
Thank
seeing
you for
you,
sharing that. I have heard that.
you got two little boys. They're
Well,
so
okay,
cute
so
seeing them together.
two boys. I know. They are really insanely adorable. Like, truly. I just look at my husband throughout the day and I'm like, these are the cutest babies I've ever
Well,
seen. Like, how are these the cutest babies in the whole world?
literally ever. And they're yours.
However, I know. It was so sweet. But with Felix, my first, I just assumed that he would be a girl. And then I actually had a dream where he came to me and said, "Hey, I'm a boy." And I told in my dream, I was 7 weeks along when he was like, "Hey, just FYI, I am a
I'm a
boy."
boy.
And I, like, literally, I was like, "Oh, I have a boy." And so I told the sonogram person at my next appointment this whole thing. And she's like laughing because she can't say anything, but she's like laughing and she's like, "Oh my gosh, well, oh, and they can't see that at that point. Like I had the blood
Yeah,
test
yeah.
to like
Confirm.
affirm that it was a
Yeah.
boy." But yes, but she was like, oh, she was telling me a story about how somebody, on their nurses team was pregnant and they all knew that it was a certain gender, but she was telling them that she was having dreams about the other gender. And that gave me a doubt because I was so sure. Like
Totally.
after I had that dream where Felix was literally, "I'm a boy.
It's intuition
Stop, I'm
where
a
you're
boy."
like, I know I'm a
And I
boy.
was like, yes,
Totally.
yes. And then when she said that, then I was like, okay, well, maybe I don't know. So when we found out it was a boy, again, I mean, I think like just the depth of feeling, I couldn't feel either way.
Yeah.
I was just kind of excited that this was happening. And then, of course, with the second one, we were like dying to have a girl. And we had kind of agreed that we were just going to have two and be done. And also, we wanted to have two as fast as possible, which we did. so,
I don't know
so
many
we were
people
here
who
for
have
it.
your gap, my friend.
But I know. But we get the results. We did the same thing you did. We had a whole party. We didn't care. I was in that life of like we made ourselves wait for 3 months before we could celebrate, which I don't know. From my understanding, I wanted more celebration earlier on to
Yeah.
like enjoy the experience. And when we found out, I think deep down I knew it was a boy, but I had, of course, wanted it to be a girl. But I didn't quite have that level of gender disappointment. It was almost like once they were like, it's a boy, I was like, I knew it.
I knew it.
I
Yeah.
just like, I knew it. I knew I was going to have two boys. However, they do look just like me. So, I have that.
I don't
So
know many people
we're,
whose
the
children look
gender disappointment
identical.
didn't,
There is like
no,
none of your, well, there's a little of your husband, I think, in Sebastian. 40.
it's hard to tell. It's hard to
They're
tell. It's hard
definitely
to pick it
yours.
out.
They're definitely yours.
So yes, yeah. So the level of gender disappointment that I know that is out there, and I have spoken to people feeling like the depths of it. I didn't quite have that, but I
Yeah.
did have the want to have a girl.
I think there's like a real stigma around like if you know you want two or even three, having like one of each at least
Yes,
is like great. But there's all this pressure on these
yes.
gender reveals now, right? And you see them on Instagram all the time where there's
Oh
like
my gosh, I know,
the the
I know,
powder and the balloons and the blah. And I feel so bad when it's like
I know.
after three boys we're having a and then it's another boy. And like you can just see the disappointment on these faces and it's
Yeah,
wild because like that's how we felt. But also like why do we do it? Why is there so much stigma around it? And I
I
think it's
know.
because yeah, like it's nice. It's a nice thing to have one of each. But it's how I think about it now is I have a baby and like fall pregnant. Yeah.
Totally,
Um,
totally. And I had like the other thing about the gender thing is I was okay, but then I had a lot of people around me being like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" Or, "Oh my
yes.
gosh, you not having a
Yes.
girl is a crime." All of this other dialogue where I was
Totally.
like,
Totally. And I was the same. People knew that I wanted another girl and they're like, "Are you okay?" Like, "Oh, but it's so nice that you get one of each and like you can stop now if you don't want another one." And I was like, "Yes, it's great that we're having a boy, but also it would have been it was so unexpected because I genuinely thought we were having a girl." So yeah, and now in like figuring out what to get for this like second baby, the main thing for me was like, well, I have this like amazing wardrobe for my daughter that I cannot use because I don't think he'll
yeah.
want to wear like frilly dresses while he's, running amok in the dirt maybe, or maybe he will, who knows? Um, but the two things that have like come up to me is like this is what you need to prepare for baby number two
Yes.
is a second baby monitor, which is wild. True fact.
Okay. Love it.
People think this is insane. For my husband and I, we actually haven't moved our daughter from our room, and she's nearly two.
Oh
I
my
know.
God.
People
That's
find that
actually
out,
super
and they're
cute.
like,
I love it.
"You're insane." I know. I'm terrified. I still get up to check that she's breathing. I think that's just like
Yeah.
a postpartum like anxiety thing that has stayed with me.
Yes.
But she will be going to
Yes.
her new room. She will. She will be going to a room. And like clothes that you want them in. So like they're honestly the only two things
Mm-hmm.
that I'm doing for
Mm-hmm.
now. It's like a new monitor and clothes for him. That's it. That's the only prep I'm doing. Um, and like figuring out how to like diaper a boy because girls are really easy.
And
Um,
yeah,
boys,
I've heard girls are harder. So,
there's more
so
detail.
you'll see. Yes.
We'll
Yeah.
see.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll see.
Yeah.
But otherwise, yeah, we're super excited.
Oh my
I
gosh.
know. Jeez.
Well, I had the experience that the second one was very healing to the first one in all sense of the words. So
I
I
feel
hope that
like
you can experience that
I feel
with your
like that's
second
what
one.
it feels like a completely different pregnancy because I feel literally
Yeah.
healed and that this is like a beautiful gift at the end of a very treacherous
Wow.
path. So I'm very
Oh man.
excited to experience a lot of firsts with our second, which would be great for him and for us.
Oh my gosh.
I know,
Emma,
crazy.
it'll be so beautiful.
I know.
I'm so excited for you.
We'll have all the
Okay,
kids running.
a few. Oh my gosh, yes, and we already have travel plans,
We
so
do.
it's all
We
truly
do. We won't
happening.
reveal them so people don't
Yes.
steal our idea.
Yeah, totally. Okay, some rapid fire questions.
Yep.
One word to describe your parenthood journey at this point. Just one word.
Roller coaster.
Ooh,
Is that two
good
words?
one. No, I think that's
Oh,
one.
one word. Yeah, roller coaster.
I'm pretty sure it's one. Yeah. Love it. Okay. Bullet pointed best advice for a new mom or a new parent coming into what this is like.
People want to help, so ask for help. And if they don't want to
Love
help,
that.
they shouldn't be in your network.
Love that.
Lean on people who bring you peace.
Mm,
Live for the moment, literally. And I know that's cliched, but like literally take every single second in because you don't
yes.
know what is around the corner. And carry your phone everywhere. People, there's this whole stigma around like not being present with your kid and whatever. We have so many photos and videos of our daughter, so many, like from myself, my husband, our family and friends, and it's just so nice to look back and see all these like beautiful photos of her growing up from different people's angles. And we're going to start a Google Drive for
Yes.
her to have people dump in all these photos of her.
Oh,
Um,
do
to
it.
have, right? And so, yeah, I think that is like to take the photos, to use the phone. That's what it's there for,
Mm,
and find time to keep dating your spouse if you have one, or find time to date if you don't have a
mhm.
spouse and you want to date, because having your friends and your family is great, but having a person that you can like put your head next to at night and like really decompress on your day um, is beautiful. And so it might not be right now, it might be in a couple of years, you might already have a spouse, you might have a partner, whatever it is, but like making time for yourself romantically, I think, as well is super necessary.
Oh, that is some really seriously good advice. All of it. Okay. Any parting words? Anything we touched on that you want to like dive a little bit more into? Anything that you feel like is kind of left on the table that you'd like to either chat about or just kind of say?
Not really. I think we like spoke about so much. I think like the biggest theme that we spoke about is like support and like finding a network, no matter
Ah,
what your postpartum journey looks like. I think that like, yeah, actually the parting words is you might have a birth plan, you might have a postpartum plan, but the universe will always have a different plan. And so being prepared for the
mm-hmm.
a different plan and a different path, you can't do that alone. No matter what, even if it's a beautiful path, if it's a treacherous path, whatever it is. And so really building up your network before birth and after birth um, to support you through the gloomy days, the bright days, will make your path a lot smoother. And everyone's time will come, right? Everyone has good days and bad days. So learning from people's journeys,
Yes.
um, I think is so beautiful, difficult but beautiful. So yeah, building a support network to help you through the good and the bad. Biggest advice
That
throughout.
is the best. Mm-hmm.
And eat all the
Oh
food,
my gosh, Emma.
all the
Oh my
food,
God, please don't
all the
try
food.
to like control that.
No, eat it all. You'll be great.
Oh my God, please.
Thank you so
Another
much.
controversial. Eat all the food.
Eat all the food. Oh my gosh, if I see one more belly band of like out of like snap back after like 2 weeks, I'm like,
Ah,
what are you
I know.
talking about? What? I
I
still
know.
have stitches, girlfriend.
I know.
No, 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 no,
I
no.
know.
There'll be none of
Yeah.
that. There'll be none of that. Any parting words from you? Anything that we spoke about that
Oh
has resonated with
God.
you?
I think, oh my gosh, so many things. I think one of the biggest things that I just like sincerely thank you for in the deepest way is just sharing your vulnerability in those dark moments. Because I think that is where the loneliness comes from, is feeling like you are the only one that has felt this way or have gone through this thing. And so just speaking it out there, I mean, we are privileged to hear it. So thank you for that.
And I should say thank you to all of the other mothers before me. And I know I spoke about it like at a high level. I hope one day, and I've said this to you before, I hope one day I am brave enough to share more of my story. Maybe it'll be on this podcast because there is so much
You're
to
invited back
learn.
every time,
Thank
anytime.
you. But to all of the women before me who walked this path and who have really bravely shared their stories, I thank you, and I know women who went through what we went through also thank you, because it's in those like loneliest of moments where you're like scrolling, trying to find someone who has the same story, and you find them and you find how vulnerable they are in podcasts or posts or Reddits or Instagrams, or who share their whole story on Instagram, for us to learn from and see and experience from. They're the real heroes. They're the real heroes. And so no matter what you're going through, it could be a physical health thing, it could be mental health, it could be just feeling so lonely in the thick of postpartum. Someone has walked your journey and someone has posted about it, and someone is being vulnerable on the internet about it. Someone is hosting podcasts about motherhood. Find those sources. And that's like a little something while you're feeding at night, that's something to feel a little less lonely, I think.
Beautiful.
Exciting. I know.
I
Thanks
love
so
it.
much. This was so fun.
Thanks for listening to It's a Circus. If today's episode made you feel a little less alone, share it with a friend who might need it too. We are building something amazing at the Turner Brothers Circus, an entire space designed for parents to find connection, laughter, and support. I'd love for you to be a part of it. Remember, you're doing better than you think. Stay grounded, stay real, and embrace that beautiful mess. And as always, the show must go on. Until next time.